The sun is a smudge, a pale ghost haunting a sky the color of old bone. Kale presses himself against the cold stone of the overhang, pulling the stiff hyena hide tighter around his shoulders. Every breath is a gamble, a shallow sip of air thick with the grey breath of the wounded earth. The ash falls without sound, a constant gentle smothering that coats the tongue with an acrid tang of sulphur and buries the world in a shroud of silence. It has been 7 days since the mountain ate the sky, 7 cycles of a twilight that never deepens into true night and never breaks into day. The world is bleached of color, a monochrome nightmare of grey on black. This is the new reality, the great dying. A volcanic winter whispered down from the angry gods of the earth, an age of ash that began without warning and promises no end. He feels the cold not just on his skin, but in his bones, a deep, invasive chill that no fire can currently fight. Behind him, in the shallowest part of the rock shelter, Lyra coughs. It is a wet, rattling sound that tears at the quiet. She is curled on her side, a fierce protective curve around the small bundle pressed against her chest. The infant does not cry. The silence from the child is more terrifying to Kale than any scream. He turns, his bare feet crunching softly in the thin layer of ash that has drifted even into their meager sanctuary. Elwira's eyes meet his over the sleeping form of their daughter. They are wide and dark in a face smudged with grit, reflecting a fear so profound it needs no voice. They are Homo sapiens, the wise ones, but there is no wisdom for this. Their minds, capable of tracking the great migrations of the mammoths and mapping the stars in the night sky, are now wrapped in a singular, primal loop: breathe, stay warm, protect the child. Kale crawls closer, his own chest taking with the effort of filtering the poisoned air. He can see the fine grey dust settled on his daughter's downy hair. Lyra has been wiping her face clean with a piece of softened leather, but it is a hopeless task. The ash is the world. The infant shifts, a tiny movement, and a thin cry escapes its lips, sharp and desperate. It is the sound of life refusing to be silenced, a sound that cuts through the oppressive stillness and pierces Kale's heart. It is a demand. They demand for warmth, for milk, for a world that is not actively trying to kill it. Lyra soothes the child, her own body racked by tremors of cold and exhaustion. Her milk is thin, her strength failing. The gnawing emptiness in Kale's own stomach is a dull ache, but the fear for them is a blade. This overhang is a tomb in waiting. He looks out at the dead, silent landscape, a ghost world of skeletal trees. It is about enduring this long, slow burial, and entrance requires a better refuge than this. The infant slips apart, but no sound comes out. The small mouth fastens weakly on Elwira's breast and then pulls away with a frustrated, silent whimper. Lyra looks at Kale, her expression a mask of hollowed-out terror. Her milk is failing, thinned by hunger and the body's own fight against the poisoned air. But worse, the water she drinks is poison itself. The small pool at the back of the cave, once their lifeline, is now a skin of grey sludge over brackish, acidic water, forced by a thirst that burns hotter than the cold, and it is killing them from the inside. The child, so fragile, is the first to succumb. Her skin is clammy, her breathing a shallow flutter. Cal touches the water skin at his hip, made from a goat's bladder. It is nearly empty. The choice is not a choice at all, it is a sentence. He must go. He must find clean water, or they will be ghosts by the next false dawn. He rises, gathering his meager tools. A hand axe of sharpened chert, its edge still keen, and a scraper made from a shard of obsidian. This simple lithic technology feels pathetically inadequate against a dying planet. He meets Elwira's gaze and touches her cheek. No words are needed. The understanding passes between them. An entire lifetime of shared hunts and silent companionship compressed into a single, desperate moment. Survive. He turns and steps out from the overhang into the soft, deep ash. The world is a featureless expanse, the familiar landmarks of his life. The crooked acacia, the ridge shaped like a sleeping beast, erased beneath a universal blanket of grey. The silence is absolute, broken only by the whisper-soft crunch of his own footsteps. It feels like walking on the floor of a dead ocean. He navigates by memory alone, a ghost map inside his head of a world that no longer exists. Hominid history was not forged in such a place as this, it was made under a vibrant sun, on a living earth. This is an ending. As he travels, the sheer scale of the event settles into his mind, a crushing weight. This is not a local fire or a seasonal drought. This is a winter that could last a lifetime, an apocalypse born from the deep belly of the earth, a real-life version of the to-be catastrophe theory that future minds would one day ponder. Every step is a labor. The ash clogs his nostrils, burns his lungs. He stumbles, catching himself, his hand plunging deep into the cold, powdery deposit. He thinks of Lyra, alone, listening to the silence, her own body a failing fortress. He thinks of his daughter's life, a tiny flicker in a vast, encroaching darkness. The fear becomes fuel. He remembers a place from a time before the sky fell. A narrow ravine where the rock itself wept, a deep spring that bubbled up from the heart of the world, far from the sky's falling poison. It is a long way. It is their only hope. He pushes onward, a lone, dark figure moving through a grey purgatory, driven by a force more ancient than any mountain, the will of a father to protect his child. He stumbles back into the shelter, a wraith caked in grey, the precious water skin held out before him like a sacred offering. Lyra does not rise. She only lifts her head, her eyes locking onto the skin with a desperate, animal intensity. Gel collapses beside her, his own body screaming with exhaustion. He uncorks the bladder and carefully, drop by precious drop, lets the clear, clean water fall onto Lyra's cracked lips. She drinks a deep, shuddering swallow, and then guides the skin to the infant's mouth. The baby, roused by the moisture, latches on, drinking with a renewed, surprising strength. For a moment, there is only the sound of swallowing in the silent cave. The water is a temporary truce with death, but the cold is the war they are losing. The dumb pair clings to them, leeching warmth with merciless efficiency. The infant shivering returns, a constant, violent tremor that shakes its tiny frame. Kale knows they will not survive another cycle of this false twilight without heat. Fire, the most ancient of all primitive technology. But the world is wet. Every piece of wood, every scrap of dried grass, is saturated with the cold damp of the endless ashfall. He rummages in the small leather pouch at his hip, his numb fingers fumbling. Inside are his most essential ancient tools, a flint flake and 2 lumps of iron pyrite. He had carried them for seasons, a guarantee of warmth, a ward against the night. Now they feel like useless stones. He searches the back of the cave, his hands scraping against the rock, feeling for the driest possible tinder. He finds a strip of bark, peeled from a dead tree long ago and tucked into a crevice, and a small, pathetic tuft of dried moss, miraculously shielded from the damp. It is not enough. He arranges the tinder in a small, hollowed-out stone. Lyra watches, her breath held tight in her chest, the child clutched to her. This is their final gamble. Kale takes a deep, steadying breath of the foul air and strikes the pyrite against the flint. A paltry spray of sparks dies in the gloom. He strikes again, harder, a sharp crack echoing in the small space. A silent groan of despair escapes Kale's lips. He hunches over the stone, shielding it with his body, and tries again. He focuses all his will, all his fear, all his love for the 2 lives shivering behind him into his hands. He strikes. A shower of sparks. One catches. A fragile, glowing worm of an ember begins to crawl across a single fiber of moss. He leans in, his face inches away, and blows. Not with force, but with a gentle, controlled breath, coaxing, pleading. He adds a sliver of bark. A wisp of smoke, acrid and beautiful, curls into the air. And then, a flicker, a tiny, impossible tongue of flame, no bigger than his thumbnail, dances into existence. That small flame, born of desperation and knowledge, is more than just a chemical reaction. It is a declaration of war against the encroaching dark. In the grand, indifferent timeline of human evolution, where species rise and are extinguished by the whims of a chaotic planet, this single act is a point of defiance. Across the ash-choked globe, countless other early humans are facing the same twilight, their stories lost to the deep path. The core elements of our improbable ascent are laid bare: the foresight to carry the means of fire, the intelligence to apply it under impossible conditions, and the profound altruism that drives one being to endure hell for another. This family struggle is a microcosm of our species' entire story. They are not merely surviving, they are actively refusing to be erased. Their refusal to let the cold have the final say is the same instinct that would one day lead their descendants to map the stars that were, for a time, stolen from them. What is the legacy of our human ancestors? Perhaps it is not the stone tools they left behind, but the memory of the first time they stared into a dying world and chose, against all odds, to create their own sun. For in the chronicles of survival, every story is written in ash and ember. But the ash that chokes the air also preserves what it buries.